All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I begin by giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakwakadash, double honors to the elders and apostles of the great millstone well. Peace, blessings, salutations to those for elect that is out there pushing, laboring, believing, and listening to this truth with our sincerity. All right, and may the blessing election be upon your houses. All right, the title and topic of this lesson, all right, it's pretty much going to be on this clip right here. This is of a Roman Catholic church. All right. And, as you see, one of their priests is holding a skull right here, and this video was uploaded by, a Haitian guy here on TikTok. And pretty much, he's speaking Creole in the background, but in other terms, he's trying to say that, participating in, the left hand side, in witchcraft, all right, is a good thing, right? And he's trying to say, in other words, that look what the church is doing, right? They're doing it, so it's okay, you know. But I'm gonna play this clip on, and then I'll just jump into it. I'm gonna mute it out though, so you don't gotta hear what he's saying, but it's just the clip here. Let me rewind it a little bit. Right, and as you see, he's walking with the skull, showing it off, you know, and then placing the skull into pretty much like an altar, a shrine, you know, and then look what he does with it after he puts it in there. He kisses it, right? Kisses the skull, right? And first and foremost, the Catholic Church is completely off, right? And by what they're doing here is through, man, right? They're ultimately, worshiping a corpse, man. That's why you see that it's so heavy. They're so deep into, they'll say things of like, "Hey, do 10 Hail Marys." They'll have, Saint this, mother this, all these different things, right? They worship them, all right. When in reality, the only, power that we should be worshiping and serving is, Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai, right? Right. The Lord is a jealous power. Right. And matter of fact, this also came to mind, because, also making me think of a conversation we had with a Levite at camp, that was saying that there was, she didn't really even know much about, the voodoo and things of that sort. She said she just, started learning about it, but she was trying to say, there's good and there's bad, and that's a lot of, topic of discussion that people try to say as a point to be somewhat argumentative, or to try to justify, the witchcraft, right? They say, oh, we use it for good, oh, we don't use it for bad. It depends how you use it, but all in all, it's through. All right, because let me grab this real quick, and in Exodus. This is Exodus, the 20th chapter, starting at verse 3. And it reads, matter of fact, I'll just start at the top, and it reads, "And the Most High spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy power, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven images, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth." Right? Continuing on, verse 5, "Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them, for I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me." Right? So, it's right there in the scriptures, right? Right? Not having any other gods right? Not having any of these graven images, making these, these shrines, having these idols, right? Bowing down to them, worshiping them, serving them, and so forth, man. Right? And if we go back to see if I can load this up again, right? If we go back to this clip, right? You see what they have here. They have, a literal corpse, right? The bones, of an individual, right? And they're showing it around, right? I believe someone else kissed it. It looked like, over there, showing it off, putting it within the shrine, bowing down to it, putting their head on it, praying to it, kissing it. This is through, right? And a lot of times, 9 times out of 10, when people are participating or practicing in voodoo and Santeria and all these, different things, they're making a shrine, right? They're making some type of shrine, some type of altar, something of that sort, man. 9 times out of 10, they're doing that, man. And that's the spirit too. Cause look right here, another clip, as you can see here. Let me see if I could. There we go. You see here, you see this guy over here. He has a whole, altar, in other terms, setting it up, lighting the candles, all these different things, man. Right? And this is all witchcraft, man. This is all left-hand side, man. The Lord despises this, man. The Lord does not like these things, man. Right? But yet you see our people are still participating in this, saying, yeah, this is our culture, this is our religion, let's this is how I talk to my ancestors, I call on to my great grandmother that passed, all these things, man. All right, whole time, they're tapping in with demons, man. Right? I'm gonna grab this. This is Deuteronomy, the 18th chapter, starting at verse 10, and reads, there shall not be found any among you, or any that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that useth divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. Right? And when we go into that word necromancer, right, it says a necromancer is a sorcerer or magician who participates in necromancy. Right? And when you continue on into it, it says a dark art of communicating with or summoning the spirits of the dead. And that's something that you see a lot of people do when they're participating in that witchcraft, man. Right? With those Ouija boards, right? You'll see it a lot with the people that are practicing, that comedic ways, and the Hamites, they'll set up a altar saying this is for their ancestors. They'll say, I'm gonna pour up some alcohol, put a cigarette here, or a black and mild, or a cigar, put some food. You even see that with Moab, Ammon. They make their shrines, light up their different candles, or whatever the case may be, put food there. There used to be this restaurant, this Ammonite restaurant, across the street from where we camped at, and I noticed a while back that they had shrines, right? They had 2 shrines. I noticed it before at camp. They had 2 shrines. They had one shrine in the front of the restaurant, right? And they had another shrine in the back of the restaurant. And periodically throughout, when we were camping, periodically you'll see a Ammonite lady, come out, and she would like pour water on it, basically like feeding it, bringing things to it and so forth, man. But that place got shut down, man. But hey, this just goes to show you, man. It don't matter how you want to look at it, how you want to, call it. You want to say it's good. You want to say you can use it for good or bad. It's wicked, man. Point blank, period, man. Right? You're tapping into that left hand side. Shouldn't have any other God that you are serving and worshiping besides Yahweh Shem Yahushua, man. Right? These are things that we see the heathen do, man. Right? But yet you see a lot of Jacobs, the ones that are participating, predominantly in this witchcraft, man. Right? Get this, right? Because just in Jeremiah 10:2, it says, thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen, right? Again, these are things that we see these heathen love to do. We see, Ammon, Moab heavy into that. They got their shrines, they got their Buddhas, they got their altars, they do all these different type of rituals and so forth. You see Ham, doing all different types of things, man. right? But yet you see Jake is the ones that are participating into it so heavily, right? You got the Santeria, you got the voodoo, you got all these different things that a lot of Jake is participating in, man, right? And they going off by doing that, man, right? There was a saying I used to hear when I was a child growing up. My family would say this. They would say this a lot. I would hear my parents say this a lot. Uncles and so forth. They would say things like, the saying was pretty much translating it from how they would say, in their tongue. They basically said, if you or participating or living by that witchcraft, and therefore that is how you're gonna die by, right? How they got the saying, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. So in other terms, you live by witchcraft, you're gonna die by witchcraft. That's a saying that they used to say a lot when I was a child growing up. But let me get this also in Isaiah the 8th chapter, verse 19. I'm reading the KJV, and also I'm reading the in the NLT also. It reads, "And when they shall say unto you, seek unto them that have familiar spirits, and unto wizards that peep and that mutter, should not a people seek unto their God, for the living to the dead?" Right? And when we read this in the NLT, right, it says, "Someone may say unto you, let's ask the mediums and those who consult the spirits of the dead. With their whisperings and mutterings, they would tell us what to do. But shouldn't people ask God for guidance? Should the living seek guidance from the dead?" Right? So again, a lot of people are going to that witchcraft, trying to talk to their ancestors, trying to talk to relatives that passed or speak to the dead, or do all different type of things by serving these idol gods and so forth, man. Right? This is completely off, man. Right? The only thing that we should be relying on and going to and serving and worshiping is Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai. That is the one and only true living power to serve, man. Right? There was an artist named Gunplay, right? He said, he had a jail sentence, right? Or he was facing a major jail sentence. I think he was facing life in jail. And he said, he had to go to voodoo because he needed something stronger than, I think he said something stronger than the Bible, something stronger than God, something to that extent, man. Right? But that is, the messed up thing about Jake, man. Right? They think that left hand side is going to save them. Think that these idol gods are going to save them, right? In the time of tribulation, the time when shit the fan, like it says in Judges, right? Go and call to the gods which ye have chosen, man. Right? Let them deliver in your time of your trouble, man. Right? Because when shit's in the fan, right, you're going to see that these idol gods are going to be nowhere to be found to deliver you in these times, man. Only those that are truly serving Yahweh Shema Shai are going to have the hedge of protection over them, man. Are going to receive that deliverance, man. But for the rest of these people, they're cooked. They're good as dead out here, man. Right? But hey, I'm gonna wrap it up with that. The point has been made. Lord willing, this was edifying to the elect of Israel. With that being said, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakwakadash, that belongs to the elders and apostles of great millstone well. Peace, blessings, salutations to those elect that is out there pushing, laboring, believing, and listening to this truth with our sincerity. Until next time, shalom. And the ball, Kwame Sharala, shalom.